There you heard Prime Minister Narendra Modi and before him German Chancellor Olaf Scholz addressing the 18th Asia Pacific Conference, which is an arrangement to boost economic and trade and investment cooperation between Germany as well as various countries in the Indo-Pacific, including India. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that he doesn't just see this as a platform for boosting economic, trade and investment cooperation, but he says that he sees this as a platform for greater collaboration between the whole Indo-Pacific region and the world. He said that the world needs trust, transparency and stability. Indo-Pacific is key for the world's future. He also spoke about the Indian talent. He said that democracy, demand, demography, data are four pillars of the Indian growth story. He also said that he is happy to note the Focus on India document that has just been released by the German cabinet, and both countries can become a force for the global good, and this particular document offers a blueprint on that to take strategic partnership forward. And he also spoke about Germany's trust on Indian skilled professionals and how Germany has opened the floodgates for visas for Indian skilled professionals, taking that number up from 20,000 per year to 90,000 per year. That's a decision that the German government has just made. And Prime Minister also spoke about the power of AI, that is artificial intelligence, as well as aspirational India, and that these are the two growth engines as far as India is concerned in the 21st century. He said that growth will be driven by human resources as well as human innovation. And he also spoke about how India is working on democratization of technology. He spoke about the various missions that India is spearheading, like Mission AI, semiconductors, on quantum computing, on space technology, on green hydrogen, on digital India. He said that all aim to make invite more investment from the world, and he said that let's collaborate in those sectors as well. He also spoke about how DPI and also Industry 4.0 are all opening new doors as far as India is concerned of investment. He invited the German companies particularly to invest in India. He also spoke of how there has been focus on renewable energy, particularly with the fourth Reinvest summit that was held in Gujarat last month. And he spoke of how India's innovation and talent and Germany's engineering and technology can come together for the benefit of the world. And before that, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz did make a very interesting speech where he did give a glimpse into the concerns that Germany has as far as the international world order is concerned, as far as the world order is concerned and international rules and the need to adhere to international rules are concerned. He spoke of potential conflicts in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. He spoke about the need to ensure that WTO rules are followed and that China should no longer be considered as a developing country because of the progress that it has made already. So let's break this down and understand the two addresses by the German Chancellor as well as Prime Minister Narendra Modi. With the guests, we have with us Professor Bava with the JNU, and also Mr. Scholz continues to be with us from Berlin. Such a pleasure again welcoming you both. Well, Professor Bava, you know, from Prime Minister's speech, he almost, I mean, one could hear a statesman talking, because his overall thrust was not on the economic and trade and investment partnership between India and Germany. He tried to link it to the benefit of the world. He tried to bring forth the importance of Indo-Pacific for world peace and prosperity and stability. What would you say was the main thrust really of his address?
So I think Prime Minister laid out a vision not only for the bilateral relationship, but for a global partnership. Because what he said was, there's a slogan for India, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, and he took that slogan from within India to outside in the world. Let's not forget it's an Asia-Pacific business conference with political leaders laying out an intentionality. He called upon German business and Indian business present over there, to kind of seize the moment and the opportunity and, think differently in a very geopolitical and geoeconomic environment, how they could bring about global development. So it is make in India, not only for India, but make in India for the world. He talked about how, when German engineering and Indian innovation come together, it would be transformative. And I think that point, what he said about AI as not only the world knows as artificial intelligence, but probably the world doesn't see, and what the Prime Minister was flagging was this is an aspirational India. An India which is young, growing, dynamic, innovative, and when these two forces will come together, it can produce a remarkable transformation at the global level and bring economic benefits to all. So I think it was a very remarkable attempt at really, giving a new direction as the year comes to an end and we look ahead. In a few days in India, we celebrate Diwali, the start of a new year. It's kind of, saying that let's seize the moment together. That's how I would see it.
Right. Mr. Scholz, what do you make of the Prime Minister's address? Would you say that he laid out the vision for global growth and the importance of greater economic collaboration between the Indo-Pacific region and the world as a whole, and not just on a partnership or the various possibilities that are there in the commercial and economic space between India as well as Germany?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, what both the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have been pointing towards is the complexity and the comprehensiveness that this partnership has gained over the past years. And we're not only talking about bilateral issues, but we're also talking about the cooperation between Germany and India on the multilateral stage. And there, of course, Germany and India can become closer partner because both countries are in a position currently multilaterally where they have to navigate between more radical positions and where they fear that AI developments in other countries will be developed in a way that is to India's or Germany's disadvantage. So to think through and to partner together in terms of how can we work together on global norms in regards to cyberspace, in regards to AI, in regards to data regulation, perhaps even. I think that will be very important looking into the future because Germany and India, as became clear during this press conference, are not interested in a world where every country closes off its borders. Both countries need global trade, need investments, and are therefore partners both for bilateral trade as well as for more brainstorming on how to bring global debates to the advantage of countries beyond that bilateral partnership.
Let me now pick your mind on what Olaf Scholz said, because he, in his address, put out a lot of concerns. He spoke about the Russia-Ukraine conflict. He spoke about the potential conflict points in South China Sea and East China Sea. He spoke against protectionism. He spoke of the need to follow international rules. He spoke about how free trade is important, but that doesn't mean that you don't follow rules. He spoke about how China should give up special treatment it has got as a developing country. So how would you characterize the thrust of Mr. Scholz's address?
Yeah, I guess what we have to understand here is that this was the address to the more kind of a business crowd right now. So, of course, the tone that the Chancellor has been trying to make was far more oriented towards what are the business opportunities, what are the opportunities for the private sector going forward. But I think beyond this address and beyond this event, we will see government consultations which will be much more focused on the mutual threats that both countries are addressing at the moment. And I think that ties a bit to the conversation that we had a bit earlier. When it is about business and about globalization, then the talk is still a lot about the Asia Pacific, and when we talk about geopolitical concerns, the tone is much more about how can we cooperate in the Indo-Pacific. So you're absolutely right. There are two conversations taking place, and for Germany being in India and talking to India, both these conversation and discourses still matter. Yes.
Would you say that there are a lot of interconnections, if I may say, between geopolitics and geoeconomics, Professor Bawa, and did we see that in his address? Because what I found very interesting is his focus on de-risking and diversification of supply chains, and his reference to China vis-a-vis trade rules, because like we were talking earlier about the second China trade shock, there are concerns that China has been giving illegal subsidies and, dominating the market. If you look at the solar panels or the renewable energy sector, the electric cars as a whole, even aluminium. So, it is home to a lot of raw materials as well, which are required really in these industries, and it's also planned ahead in a sense, but there are also a lot of concern around subsidies, and WTO rules perhaps are not equipped to deal with a situation like that. So, are these geo-economic challenges that are there, and is this a shared challenge for India, Germany, Indo-Pacific and the world as a whole to have China plus one and to go full steam?
So I think, yes, there's a very strong connection between the geopolitical and the geo-economic. More so, I think, since the fragility of the single supply chain came through post-COVID, and to recognizing the need to de-risk. Another word for de-risking is actually diversifying. I mean, between a political agenda setting, which what both the leaders are doing, and businesses de-risking, there is a difference in timeline. Businesses are invested for multiple decades. So that is why when the Prime Minister said this is the moment, please seize the moment and come in, it's also to say that look at India, not only as India as this bilateral partner, but in the global supply chain and the value chain, India would be your partner of choice and should be the partner of choice. And also emphasizing, which I think Prime Minister Modi said, and also coming through from what Chancellor Scholz said, about rules and regulations. The emphasis on democracies, that which also Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal said earlier, it's a country where, as a democracy, the respect for rules are there. When you come in with your investment, there is a structure and system over here. So I think clearly there is a recognition on both sides that this is a business forum, and there is a political assurance and a message going to the business forum that from both sides, Germany and India, we recognize that this is a moment of opportunity. And I think far more details in terms of how India and Germany see specific exposures to threat from China. We have to recognize is going to be a little different. Ours, with an exposure of our geography, make us more vulnerable, and Germany is exposed in terms of its high volumes of business with China. So that is where I think the finer details in the bilateral IGC meetings will, bring far more political weight to the content we saw, being presented today, just now a short while back.
Mm-hmm. So that's about the addresses that have been given by the two sides. Now, Mr. Scholz, what do you make of the thrust on the green and strategic partnership? Where do you see this partnership headed? How much focus on renewable energy, on solar energy, on green hydrogen, on other green technologies do you think could be there? Once again, there's already, we know, a green and a sustainable partnership between India and Germany, and that was agreed to in 2022. Do you expect even more focus going forward on this element? Could it become a very strategic area of cooperation, an interconnection between climate policy and green technology?
Yeah, well, what I've been hearing from different stakeholders was that there's still a lot of waiting on the implementation of the agreement that was done 2 years ago. So while, again, the will was there to cooperate on green hydrogen, the implementation is still going slower. And I think once we have overcome that period, then of course we can also kind of think about more and deeper cooperation. I would like to point out one thing, which is that this new strategic paper, which the German government has published last week,
yes,
includes a new coordination of different interests from the German side that kind of tie into that the specific policy domain, which is that now in Focus on India, there's a connection between we need climate cooperation to fight the climate crisis together. We need to have climate cooperation to have co-development and co-innovation on climate technologies. But there's also an angle of energy security to it, that we want both countries to be to leverage our domestic energy security. And I think this kind of strategic maturing on the German side also gives food for thought on how we more comprehensively want to address energy policy, energy cooperation, climate cooperation in the future, because it becomes more and more a multi-domain and a multi-domain effort by different cabinet ministers and ministries that are involved in this process.
Mm-hmm. On the focus on migration and mobility, Germany has laid out the red carpet, so to say, for Indian skilled workers. Many more visas would be given, up from 20,000 every year to 90,000 every year. And Mr. Scholz said that this is an invitation of welcoming not just of workers from India, but from the whole region, that is from the whole Indo-Pacific region. So, Professor Bava, there is a huge shortage of skilled workers, of blue-collar workers in Germany, and over the last few years, we've been seeing a lot of focus on inviting Indian professionals there to work. There are a lot of students that study there. Again, do you see complementarities between India and Germany? How does India really stand to gain from this?
So I think in terms of the Indo-German relations and the current state of play, Germany is facing acute labor shortage across many sectors. And in India, our demographic dividend has meant that we have very good skilled workforce available. Now, the most challenging and pressing point in all of this is how to make it a legal migration, how to see that our skilled workforce, who go to Germany, get the dues met and properly, there is a plug and play in this, as I would call it. And I think within that context, it's important to know that we have a Migration and Mobility Pact. It's also within the larger India-EU and part of the FTA and negotiations as well, how to streamline and facilitate. And in that, I think it's a very welcome development what Germany has come out with the latest in supporting digital visas to scaling up the numbers. And also they have put out that they will go to launch special recruitment drives to go to educational institutions where they can actually get the people, give a language training, because we have to recognize that somebody going to work is going with a cultural background from here, but also needs to be fit to be able to work over there. And I think that is where connecting the dots is where this document is coming out to open up a win-win situation on both sides. I would say that.
Yes, that reminds me of the Arya case, but we'll come to that in a bit. Before that, Mr. Scholz, your thoughts on the way Germany is attracting talent from India and various countries from the Indo-Pacific. There is a particular focus on attracting Indian talent because of what Indians really bring to the table. There's a huge shortage of blue-collar workers. Germany has been at it for quite some time, trying to invite more Indian professionals to come there and work. What is the sentiment there on average of the people of Germany? How do they look at this? Because very often we see an anti-immigration sentiment in developed countries, and politics has changed in the European countries and the United States around this particular issue that's become so seminal in political discourses and on the campaign trail. So how is this perceived at the ground level by the average citizen? Is there a huge shortage of gargantuan proportions there?
Well, I think Professor Bava has laid out the situation in Germany quite well. So there is a large labor shortage in Germany, and Germany considers India to be the key partner in attracting a skilled labor force. Generally, I would say that this development has been going so swiftly that in Germany we're still kind of in the process of understanding the massive transformation that is currently taking place. As indicated earlier, the number of Indians in Germany, of the labor force, has been increasing around 20-25% from one year to the other year. So this growth is on a very high level, and we have around 50,000 Indian students currently in Germany. I think what is very important going forward is to have a structured process in play, and to kind of also inform the population here in Germany, to inform the public on why this is necessary, on why we need this mobility partnership with India, and how it can contribute to our economy, to our society, and how it helps not only in very highly skilled areas such as IT, but also in, for example, caretaking, or in the construction areas, where we will see, I think, much more development in the future years to come.
Yes, taking a tangent from what was said and the strategic partnership to a case that is worrying some Indians here back home, of the Ariha case, because we're talking here of a 3-year-old child who's been taken into foster care by German authorities, and the child biologically is of Indian parents. So there was an indication that was given by the German ambassador to India, Philip Ackermann, that they are willing to come to some sort of an understanding on this, and that they are ready with answers. I remember there was a summoning also of the German ambassador some time back by the MEA on this case. Your thoughts, really? This is a very peculiar case. I mean, we've seen a case involving Norway as well in the past. So there are cultural differences that are there, and this is a challenge for the Indian community living there in Germany. What really could be the possible way forward, not just in this case, but generally speaking? I mean, how do you understand their culture better? How do they appreciate our culture better? And how can such things be avoided?
So, right, it's a very sensitive point about this young child who's now 3 years old and in foster care. I think both sides are trying hard to get a via media, so that the child, it is an Indian child being brought up in Germany, and the laws in Germany on childcare are very distinct, so one has to recognize that as well. At the same time, I think given the complexity of the case, it's important to also not deny the rights of the child to be brought up in a specific cultural environment. It is not a German child. And I think that exposure to India and Indian culture, and more importantly, the child's own background, that needs to be made available to the child. So I think both sides are looking at how to get a breakthrough in this, because if we are moving forward the partnership, scaling it up, the India Focus document calls India a global partner from the global south, the voice of the global south. On the other hand, the migration and mobility is looking at scaling up the numbers of Indians who would be going to work. This case should not become the template by which to look at everything, what is coming through, and the positive. So I think it's also important as one looks at increasing the numbers going to Europe, that Indians are also made aware of rules and regulations. It's not just that one is just going to work over there. One is going to live in that particular country, and people should be made aware of what are the rules, regulations, cultural sensitivities on both sides, so that in the future, as opportunities increase and more people go, we do not have cases like this that should ever happen. A case like this should never happen anywhere. A child's right to be protected is inalienable anywhere. But we have to also sensitize both sides, and I think this is where the role of civil society and institutions, perhaps for workers going off, for people going off, there should be some handbook of understanding. I remember I went to study in Germany, and then you learn so much navigating it, living with others and students. But as you go to work, it's a very different environment. And I think that's where we have to take some other steps on cultural sensitivity, understanding rules, and creating support systems. I think that is extremely important in making both sides aware of how you navigate very cultural specificities, while recognizing that rules and laws are important.
Yes. Would you agree, Mr. Scholz, on that it is important to have greater appreciation of cultural sensitivities, and maybe a handbook on how to live in India, or how to live, or the understanding the cultures and ways of life of people of the two countries, so that such instances can be avoided?
Well, yeah, I mean, we have previously discussed the role of the private sector when it comes to following up the strategic interests that the governments have formulated. And as Professor Bava said, it's the same for other topics as well, just with the different sectors. So as we are just seeing the Indian diaspora in Germany to grow, it will be important to build communication channels where these actors from the Indian diaspora can communicate more openly and more actively about the issues that they see, the ways how they think. Bureaucracy, for example, can become more efficient, where the how work practices or how the work culture, poses certain concerns for them, and we need to build these communication channels that will become increasingly important because. As previously, the workforce from India and Germany was very small. It will be growing, and we are already at 250,000 Indians in Germany, which is a huge number. But Germany is very new to this kind of policy domain. India has a lot of experience with sending skilled workers abroad and with these kind of agreements with Canada, with the US, with the UK in the past. There has been a lot of migratory movement. For Germany, this is quite a new experience, and therefore all stakeholders who are involved in this and participate in this new development should be heard more and should be consulted in the process in terms in legal terms, but also in kind of the public discourse that will take shape over the next years.
Right. Now, there is another angle to the partnership, and that is triangular cooperation, Professor Bava. How has the experience of both India and Germany been in such triangular cooperation? Because I was looking at the various areas of cooperation where projects have been completed, and there's agriculture, women entrepreneurship, millet cultivation, and post-processing. And do you think that this could also be, once the joint statement comes out or the communique comes out, then this could be a continuing focus?
I think definitely yes. It's been small at this point. I think within the context of, if you read it along with the India Focus document and the naming of India as the global partner to engage, then I think the trilateral, and going into third country, co-branding would become extremely important. So this is definitely an area which India should also push forward, and Germany is also looking at it. I think we need to expand the areas on which we can do. More of them have been pilot at this point, and I think this will see a little bit more expansion as the joint statement comes out today.
Okay, so we are coming to the close of this special broadcast. Very quickly, if in 30 to 45 seconds, Mr. Scholz, you could tell us your top 3 expectations from the visit of Mr. Scholz. You could talk of the partnership or any particular sector or 3 sectors, if you like. Please go ahead.
Yes, well, the first and foremost takeaway will be security cooperation. We will see the Chancellor going to Goa tomorrow with the Defense Minister, and coming out of the consultations, defense and security cooperation will be the top priority. Beyond that, technology cooperation in all regards will be the key to unlock the trade partnership potential. I think that's what both heads of governments have agreed on and will be discussing. I think security and technology will be the 2 things to watch.
Security and technology. What do you think are the things to watch out for?
I'll endorse Tobias on that. Definitely security and defense, I think, is going to be number 1. And the Green and Sustainable Development Partnership with a push for technology, and, third is migration and mobility. I think I will place these 3 on board.
All right, so with that we conclude this special broadcast on the 7th intergovernmental consultations between India and Germany. We expect exchange of agreements and press statements also to be made in a short while from now. But an extremely significant visit of the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to India for 7th IGC consultations and for taking the strategic partnership of the last 25 years between the 2 countries forward. We leave it at that, Mr. Scholz and Professor Bava. Such a pleasure to have the 2 of you here on the special broadcast. And many thanks to Ambassador Gurjeet Singh, who had left us some time back. He had also given some very insightful comments on the situation between India and Germany as it stands today. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for watching DD India. News and updates will continue on DD India. Stay tuned.